everyone here. Hopefully this is the first of many book parties that we're going to do. What I said to Paul was, hey, you know, we need to call the literary folks at the Post, we need to call Busboys and Poets, and he's like, no, this is just for family, this is just for friends, this is not promotional, this is just to celebrate. So I'm going to talk for 5 minutes max, no more. Paul's going to talk for 15 minutes tops. He's
going to read.
Going to and we're really here to celebrate 2 books in 3 years. And we're going to get the party started again. So thank you all for being here. It feels appropriate to be here in such a historic building because, frankly, for our family, this is a historic thing. We have not done this before, and we knew we were going to have an author in the family and would have to be hosting a book party one day. So it's unusual for Paul to get the opportunity to script me, but he has scripted me tonight. So right, enjoy it, Paul. It doesn't have to be much. But so you guys are wondering, how did we get to this point where we have 2 books up here and an author who's published in the room? And so I'm going to give you some of the events that brought us to this point this evening. So it was in November of 2007 when All-Pro Redskin player Sean Taylor was shot in his home protecting his family. And all of Washington just was rocked by this experience, the sorrow, the disbelief, the grief. And my own family was rocked by this as well. The boys in the family were certainly feeling this. And it was at the start of January when Paul started writing about this and creating a story and a narrative to help put all of this in place and give it some logical context. This wasn't the first time that Paul started writing. He actually started back in 1991 writing essays, playing with the book, creating this imaginary family, the Finelli's family, that he lives in this area, has how many boys, and is Italian in background. In fact, some people, when Paul calls them, they answer the phone by their name in the books. So there are some similarities out there, so it's real life. But, you know, with the growing family, he wasn't able to actually sit down and write. It was back in 2008 to 2011 that he started picking up writing again. Another friend coming in directly from Philadelphia. That he started writing again. But it wasn't until early spring 2012, he's all by himself in the car, driving to Florida, 13-hour trip, and he's listening to spring training baseball on the radio. And he's getting the typical, and this is going to be familiar for folks, you know, depression anticipatory of a DC baseball season. And this idea comes to him, and it just filled his head, and he sat down and wrote Big Train's Backyard in 6 months. It was remarkable. That was published, and then he had learned the cadence and the routine to be able to publish, and within 3 years, the safety that he started back in 2008 has now been completed. So, of course, you can't take my word for it, I'm his wife, right? So what I'm going to do to not only celebrate that the books have been written, but I also want to actually share some reviews and some input that's come in through email and on Amazon, and so that you can know what other people are thinking about it. So here's some snippets that I pulled from the web. The Safety is not just a football story, it is a deeply satisfying, moving, hard to put down story. A dramatic, soul-stirring look at a young athlete's attempt at stardom. Follow as Guy Finelli journeys from a depressed, broken-hearted young guy to a football superhero. An absolute, terrific read that intertwines the sports, family, history, and drama, and is a recipe for a delicious read. P. Edmund Fischetti, who we all, of course, knows Paul, is not just a wonderful writer, but a fabulous storyteller who has the ability to please, incite, and place the reader at the edge of their seats. Now, anybody in the room write any of those reviews? one person. All right, thank you. So Paul's going to read 7 excerpts from this safety. It's going to take about 15 minutes. And this is, I'm going to give you the progression of where it leads in the book so you'll understand. First, he's going to read the first 4 paragraphs and the last paragraph of the prologue. He's going to follow that with the first 5 paragraphs of chapter 1. Then 3 paragraphs from chapter 13, 3 paragraphs from chapter 14, 2 paragraphs from chapter 15, and then the 1 piece of poetry in the book. He'll read through that as well. And finally, he will close with 2 paragraphs from chapter 32. We'll have time for questions at the end. We'll have time for book signing, 2 books, $20, and then it'll be all our jobs to get this party restarted again. We have the music, we're going to be turning that up, and I know that we have people here who love to dance. So, thank you. And I introduce Paul Fischetti.
During the post-Civil War era in the United States, organized sports slowly replaced war between states, cities, and towns as acceptable aggression between conflicting sides. What was called football at the time was the most combative of these aggressions. The first attempt at college football was a rough combination of soccer and rugby at Rutgers University against Princeton University on November 6, 1869. The academic institutions were a 20-mile horse-drawn carriage ride apart in central New Jersey. The rules were set by the home team. No player was allowed to pick the ball up and carry it forward, much less throw it forward. There were 25 players a side, colliding in large scrums while trying to kick the ball towards the goal. Each crossing of the goal was worth 1 point, and Rutgers won 6-4. The following week, the 2 teams played again, this time at Princeton, with the home team setting the rules. Princeton came up with a new one that would change the game forever. Any player would be awarded a free kick when catching the football in the flop. This allowed for a team to gain precious field position from a player with great hands, who was also a talented punter. Princeton won 8-0 because they reconfigured their defense by dropping a player from the line of warfare to intercept the unabated advancement of a kicked football. This new position would become the safety. Suddenly, this game of football that was replacing the idea of any ground war in the United States had introduced the air game. The safety is the last line of defense in football, and among the many responsibilities of the current position, the most important is defending against the bomb. To defense against the bomb in the next decade, the idea is to stop the escalation of offensive weapons. A super interceptor, a new defensive hero, or perhaps a superhero is needed to bring sanity to this conflict. A balance is necessary to return the use of weapons to the ground, or in the game of football, just a dozen yards or so above it. A beacon of hope is needed to even the playing field, something bigger, faster, smarter, and bolder than before. Somebody that gives us a fighting chance to keep the defense in the equation. A superhero that will rise in this decade for our protection, something quite simply known as the safety. So chapter 1. Before dawn on Monday, November 26, 2007, 13-year-old Guy James Finelli heard the creaking of the almost 60-year-old subflooring above the ceiling in the finished basement as his father, Philip, came down from the second-floor stairs. Each succeeding step across the living room area rug echoed more gently into Guy's sleepy consciousness as Philip reached the kitchen to start the coffee for the work week. His dad's morning task reminded Guy that reality on the other side of sleep was about to start. The house, built in Washington, D.C., a suburb of Silver Spring, during the post-World War II housing boom, had its charming traits, but squeaky floors was not one of them. Guy kept his eyes closed, hoping to sneak out another 30 minutes of sleep before having to wake up at 6 o'clock for another week of 8th grade. Guy slept most weekend nights in the basement, which was evolving into a serious man cave. On his 13th birthday in early October, Philip had presented him with a 42-inch HD TV to go with a killer couch from his grandmother's house for television viewing heaven. He was hoping for an Xbox 360 at Christmas to complete the perfect playground triangle. For now, the entire basement was great for sleepover with friends, ping pong, gaming on the old Xbox, and even occasional homework and naps. But most importantly, watching sports, especially football. The HD TV was left on without the volume and emitted an ever so slight buzz throughout the entire night that entered his consciousness during his sleep. On most nights, it gave him a good feeling to know that Sports Center would be there in the morning to help him wake up. This morning, his subconscious created one final dream about his favorite football player, Washington's All-Pro safety, Sean Taylor. He dreamed about Sunday's game against Tampa Bay and experienced it ending with a spectacular interception by Taylor to thwart a last-second comeback by Tampa Bay. Sean Taylor, for 3.5 seasons, had played for Washington with the force of a hurricane, reaching landfall with crashing waves of hits on all opponents in the path of his storm. The excitement created by his energy on the field equaled that of a superhero to young players like Guy Fischetti.